Okay, so I'm now recording. Okay, so we're in week 3, right? This is our third call. We might be. Well, this is our third call. So if you're not tracking your food, I want you to go ahead and start doing that. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is, bear with me just a moment. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is review with you. Okay, excuse the mess on my laptop. First thing I'm going to do with you is review how to use, did I say reviews? Review how to use MyFitnessPal. Let's see if I can log in. So this is what I tell people to use when they're, sort of to understand, you don't often understand. Okay, whatever. This is what I tell people to use, is MyFitnessPal, because it has the biggest database of food. There are other things that you can use. I think Lose It is an app that people use. There's some other micro calculators. I'm not certain what they're called just right now, but this is what I tell people to use. And so I'm going to show you on the desktop. It's a little bit different on the app. I might take a few minutes and look at that too, but so this is my account. So my calories are set at 2,500. I haven't been tracking. So in the next few weeks, I'll probably start tracking. I am in a place where I'm recovering from having a baby, and I'm ready to get my body back in shape, and my body's ready to be back in shape. But there's only so much that I can commit to because I have a small child, I'm a single mother, and I run a business. So small steps along the way will get me to the goal, and I know that. So I'm just being patient with myself on it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to log food, and then I'm going to kind of look at it a little bit, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit deeper about calories and macronutrients and how flexible dieting really can work for you. So let's say if I'm going to track today's food, let's see what's going on. Bear with me just a moment. Should have already logged myself in. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, so here, this is what your food comes up and looks like when you're getting ready to log it in. And this is also what it looks like on the app. Okay, so once you hit on the app, let me just show you, pulled up my app. And this blue button that's at the bottom right here, I know the sun's a little bright right here. You hit that button and then it pops up those options. And the options, you can log weight, water, food, exercise, and status. Status is like social share, okay? All you do is hit the food one here. And then I think I hit the right one. There we go. Okay. And then, so once you hit food, it comes up to your food meal options. And then, so let's say I hit breakfast, and then it gives me a list of things that I've put in there recently. And then, I don't know if you can see that a little bit better, the things that I've used recently. And then there's a bar at the top that's just search for a food. And so then you just type it in and put it in there. So what we're going to do real quick is I'm going to log my, no, I'm not, because the site is down for maintenance. Okay, so we are going to go in a different direction, and I will see if, let's see. Okay, yeah. So I may do a whole separate video on this and send it out to you so that it won't be down for maintenance and you can actually see it. I can do it on my phone and hold it up to the camera, but I just don't think that that's as good for what I'm trying to get across to you. So let's switch gears, and I'm going to stop share here. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about macronutrients, what they are, calories, why it's important to car. Okay, I'm going to use this right here. Okay, so, all right, so macronutrients. Okay, what are they? Macronutrients essentially are protein, carbon, fat. Okay, what they are by definition, okay, they're energy providing compounds consumed in large quantities, consumed by organisms in large quantity, I think is what it actually says. The thing is that your food gives you energy, it is your fuel. And macronutrients, macro stands for large, so big. Nutrients are just that, the compounds that provide energy. So when we talk about macronutrients, we're really just talking about protein, carbon, fat. I know that you're familiar with that in a way that where you've heard of low carb diets, you've heard of high protein diets, you've heard of low fat diets, you've heard of keto, which is high fat diet. So you've heard of macronutrients in a way of marketing, diet marketing, program marketing, and manipulating those macronutrients to get a result, right? So low carb is a manipulation of macronutrients to get a result. High protein, same thing. Keto, high fat, same deal. Okay, so I know that you've heard about them before, and I'm gonna, in just a few minutes, I'm gonna talk to you about what each is, where they come from in food, what it does for you in your body, and from a macronutrient perspective, why looking at your macronutrients versus calories is better for body change. Let me say quickly that when you're looking at macronutrients versus calories, it's more targeted for your goal. You can change it, manipulate it a little bit more. And so that's why it's more efficient to get to your goals, right? So when I talk about calories, what comes to mind? What do you think about when I say calories? For a lot of people, it's kind of like finances, like no one really wants to look at it or deal with it or talk about it or anything. I find with my clients that calories are overwhelming and that there's a sort of a negative energy flow with them. For some people, it's actually just thinking about it. For some people, it's overwhelming because it's math. Like all food really is math. And so if you're good at math and you're good with numbers, the simple addition, subtraction, multiplication kind of stuff, then it's really not that hard to get into tracking calories and keeping count and stuff like that. So, you know, calories are potential energy. Like that's where we get our energy from. They're actually called kcalories. And those calories break down, and that's just an account. It's a number that we can put to the energy that you're getting out of food. And so to be able to track it and to manipulate it to get whatever result that you're after, we have to be able to put something to it so it's measurable. And that's where the numbers come in. So calories are energy. That's all that they are. And we get them from food. And so to be able to track it and manipulate it and figure out where it comes from, that's where the numbers come from and where calorie comes from. So, okay, so within macronutrients, okay, let me say this first. So we have calories, okay? If you're just care about weight loss, then calories is it, right? You don't care what you're losing, whether it's muscle or fat or water or whatever, you just want to lose weight. So calories is what you're going to come from, right? So calories are at the top. Below that are macronutrients, because each gram of a macronutrient gives you calories. And I'll tell you how to calculate that. It's simple math. So don't be overwhelmed with it. I find that understanding some of the numbers, especially people who are good with numbers, it makes it simpler for people to kind of grasp it, and it's not so overwhelming, because people get caught up in like how many calories are in what food and where it's coming from, and they get caught up in the food's source of the calories, and not so much about how to actually manipulate them, track them, and keep up with them. So different food types have different energy potential. Remember that calories are energy. It's potential energy. So calories are energy. Different food types and different macronutrients give you different calorie energy. Okay. I hope that's coming across simple. If you have questions on this, please just reach out and I will explain it to you and help you understand. But okay, different food types have different energy potential. Okay, so let's look at it in grams. When you look at a nutrition label, there are, let me pull one up real quick. There's calories and there's, there's calories and there's fat grams and there's carb grams and there's protein grams. So all macronutrients are given to you on a, what do I call it? Totally drawn a blank right here. Food label are given to you on a food label in grams. Okay. And so what happens is, this is a good example. What happens is, to get the total number of calories, you actually just do math. Okay, so let's look at this one right here. I'm not sure what this is. Okay, so this is the way all nutrition labels look, right? We have serving size at the top, okay? How many servings per container? So this is a packaged food of some sort because it's a per container serving, right? So it's 2/3 of a cup. So in 2/3 of a cup, whatever this is, you're going to have 230 calories. Calories are always the first thing below the biggest bold line, but then above the next one. And so then there's fat comes next, and then carbs are down here, and then protein. So that's the way all food labels look. Even this one over here, you can tell it's the same thing, same setup. All these over here, same setup. Okay, so the macronutrients are given to you in grams, right? So it's 8 grams of fat, 37 grams of carb, and 3 grams of protein. Down, usually on a food label somewhere, they give you, oh, right here it is. They give you down here calories per gram, okay? And so right down here is where we're looking. So it says fat 9, carb 4, protein 4. What that means is for every gram that's on the label of a fat, protein, or carb, this is how many calories it gives you per gram. Okay, so if we were to say 14, let me actually do the math on this so it makes sense to you. Okay, so if we take the number of fat grams right here, it's 14 grams. Okay, and we're going to multiply that by 9, right? Because it's 9 calories per gram. We get 126 calories. Okay, so the fat in this food, whatever it is, this is a different food than the one before, but the fat in this food is going to give you 126 calories. Okay, so then if we take the carbs right here, 17 grams of carbs times the 4 calories per gram of carbs that it gives you is 68 calories. Okay, and then we have 3 grams of protein. So we take 3 grams of protein times the 4 calories per gram that it gives us, and that's 12. And then we add all that together. So we've got 126 calories from fat, 68 calories from carb, 12 calories from protein, and that gives us 206 calories. Okay, now the thing not to get weird about is if you do this and the number that you get is different from the number here, don't be weird about it. Okay, it should be close. There are some rules or guidelines within food labeling that allow them to do things like say it's 200 calories when you're really going to get 206. Okay, don't be weird about that. All you need when you're tracking is an account, right? But this also goes to show you how tracking your macros is going to give you a better, more efficient number versus calories, right? Because let's say every food that you ate all day long was 6 calories less on the food label versus what you actually got if you calculated it. And so then let's say you had, I don't know, 20 foods that day, which could happen maybe, right? So, 20 times 6 is 120 extra calories, okay? Times 7 days is 840 extra calories over the week, right? Times 4 weeks for the month, that's 3,360 extra calories that month, right? And to gain 1 pound, it's 3,500 calories. So that just goes to show that macronutrients is a little bit more efficient than calories. I do find a lot of times, I would say more often than not, that when I calculate out the macronutrients and into calories, I get a different number from the total calorie that they're giving. So some of that is cell stuff, because a lot of people just look at calories, or they're just looking at one macronutrient. So if you're on a high protein diet, this may not be a good food for you because it only has 3 grams of protein. So they know that you're only looking at that one thing, whether it's calories or fat or carbs or protein. And so they're not necessarily manipulating it, because they are working within their guidelines, but they're basically rounding it down, right? Instead of rounding it up to 210, they're rounding it down to 200 versus the 206. So I do find that happens pretty often, but don't let that weird you out, because the thing is that we want an account and we want you to be close, right? If it's off so much like this, if this was making you gain a pound in the month, then, we would know that something was going on so that we could make an adjustment, or you should be able to know that something's going on that you would need to make an adjustment. Okay. And if your goal is weight loss and not weight gain, then that would be a sign that you want to make a change in what you're doing. Okay. So looking at a food label is very important, because you can figure out what type of food this is, like per the macronutrient. So if it's a fat food, a carb food, or a protein food. Okay. And so I'll get into that a little bit differently, but keep this in mind. And, when you're shopping, especially if you're buying packaged foods, look at the labels and look at the calories, look at the fat, look at the carb, look at the protein, because it's all there. Don't get caught up in all this like saturated trans fat and this fiber and sugar deal, because fiber and sugar is included in this total carb. Okay. Saturated fat and trans fat is included in this total fat. So the sub, I don't know what you would call them, whatever these are, under the subcategories, I guess, of like the type of carbohydrate or the type of fat. Don't get caught up in that. Just look at the total fat, total carbs, total protein. And it's really easy to do this because they're all, it's all the same. Okay. So one more thing for me to note is that if you, like, this is a serving size of a half a cup. And so let's say it's like ice cream. That would be a good option. It might actually be ice cream. So half a cup. So if you have a whole cup of this, then you're going to get double, right? Because it's 2 times the serving size, right? 2 half a cups is a cup. So you would have to multiply everything by 2. So you would get 400 calories. You would get 28 grams of fat. You would get, how many is that? 34 carbohydrates, and you would get 6 protein, right? So reading a food label comes in handy. It helps you a lot. I look at food labels on everything. I also look at ingredients, mostly because food allergies and stuff, but I always look at a food label. Once you are in a rhythm with looking at the food label and you get the foods that you eat most, like, you won't even have to look anymore, but it's useful to know how to look at one and understand what you're actually looking for, because just looking at a food label can be overwhelming for people if they're not familiar with what's on there, how to read it, how to look at it, and what it's actually giving you. So, and it gives you a lot more information than what you need, like daily values and stuff like that. So, okay, so that's how to read a food label. Where was I on? Okay, energy potential. Different macronutrients give you different energy potential, right? So this right here shows you, and this is on this right here down here, calories per gram. This is on most food labels. Okay, I mostly see it. So some food label in your home will have this on it if you forget. It's pretty easy to remember because fat gives us more calories per gram than protein or carbs. And so 9, 4, and 4 basically is all you have to remember. Okay. But it's always there if you need it, if you want to review that or try to make calculations on your own or whatever. So, okay. So let's talk about what this means for weight loss and or body change. Remember, I told you before that if you are trying to lose weight, then like total calories is fine if you don't care where your weight's coming from. And it can be muscle, it can be fat, or it can be water, and it doesn't matter. So total calories works for you, and that's all you really have to focus on. If you're looking for body change as far as composition change and You really just want to focus on losing body fat and preserving your muscle mass. So muscle is what shapes our body. If you want to change the shape of your body, changing your muscle, toning your muscle, getting stronger, building your muscle, that's how you actually change the shape of your body. If you want your butt to look better, then you've got to build your glute muscles. If you want your abs to look better or to look shredded or to be toned, then you've got to build your ab muscles. Like, that's just, at the end of the day, that's how you change the shape of your body and the look of your body. Yes, the look of your body will change if you just lose weight, but you have no control on how it actually looks. A lot of times people, when they lose a lot of weight, they'll kind of look sick, and like you may have like saggy skin and stuff like that. And so to control that, you want to build the muscle. And for women, like, don't be afraid of getting big and bulky, because number one, we don't have enough testosterone to support that. Number two, if you see that that's happening, change your program. Like, it's a really easy fix, even for men. If you see that you're getting too bulky for your taste, change your program, right? And so it doesn't mean that you have to do more cardio. It just means that you change your lifting structure. So for weight loss, total calories is fine. For body composition change, preserving muscle and losing body fat, burning body fat, getting lean, macros is really a better way to go, because you have more control. And so your body uses fuel all the time. So the way it works is you eat a meal, your body takes those calories, it breaks it down, it uses some of them, it stores some of them. Then it's so many hours between that meal and your next meal. During that time, if it runs out of that meal, right, if it's used up everything out of that meal, then it will start to pull from your stores. We store energy in our body, in fat, in muscle mass, in our liver. And so we will pull that out and use that. And then at your next meal, when you eat, your body will start to use that fuel, and it will break some of it down and use it, or it will store some of it possibly. So, and it just keeps going on like that. So all day, your body is either burning calories or storing them, right? It's either using fuel or storing it all day long. And that's the mechanism that we were given to keep us alive, to survive. And I talk a lot about how the body and the brain's first objective is to keep us alive and to survive. So that's from threat, from dangerous situations, from being chased from animals, from starvation and famine. And so we have these mechanisms within ourselves that allow us to stay alive and that keeps us alive. And so it's actually a really unique process, and it's very scientific and very in depth, and it's a whole nother thing to talk about those types of things. But just understand that you eat food, that is your fuel, and your body is using it or storing it the whole time through. If you're in a surplus, then like you're eating more calories than what you're actually burning or using every day, then you're more likely to gain weight and store body fat. Okay. If you're in a deficient, if you're eating lower than whatever your maintenance calories are than what you're using every day, then you're more likely to lose weight, not necessarily body fat, but weight. Yes. So then your weight would come down. Okay. So know that our body is constantly functioning and running. And even at night when you're sleeping, our body down regulates so it doesn't burn as many calories, because really it's just your essential processes, like your organs working, your lungs working, your heart beating, your brain functioning, those kinds of things. So your body in itself and your muscles are not moving around, so they're not really using energy. So you don't burn as much at night. You down regulate because you're resting and recovering and sleeping. But your body is still working and it is still using energy because it has to do that for your organs to work, right? So okay. So I kind of have intermittently thrown out why tracking macros is better. But the question comes up sometimes, do I really need to track my macros? And the real answer to that is that you don't have to, but you also can't guarantee success if you don't. So people who want to eat better or eat healthier or eat clean, just because you eat clean fuel doesn't mean that you're, eating more or less than what your output is per day. So, you don't have to, but you can't guarantee success. And what I find is by using macros, we actually can, it's not perfect. So to a greater degree, we can guarantee success, right? There's more things to manipulate. So if you're just looking at calories, that's one thing to manipulate, and we go up or down or stay the same. And really the choice is to go up or down. If we're looking at macronutrients, there's more things to manipulate, more options to work with to continue to get you the result that you're after. We also have more options of where to pull calories from if we're reducing your calories. So we don't really want to pull them from protein, although sometimes we have to. But if you tend to like to eat a diet that's higher in fat, then we would want to pull your calories from your carb grams before we pull them from your fat, especially when you get really low in calories, because you're going to be more satisfied and it's going to feel less like you're on a diet. You're going to be able to enjoy it a little bit more than just restricting everything. So there's more to manipulate with. It's more targeted. It's more efficient. People seem to be happier on it. And there's more things to focus on than just, however many calories are in something. So your food selection and your food choices can be better. You don't have to feel bad about what you're eating. And so that's my answer to that. Like, should you really track your macros? Well, you don't have to. I find that it gives the best result. I find that it's easier to manage, it's easier to work with, it's easier to manipulate your diet in various ways for me and for you. So, your success has a higher rate of guarantee, if I can say it like that. I'm not sure that it comes off like that, but that's how I'm going to say it. So, at the end of the day, like, your body is going to work regardless. And so, it's going to gain weight or lose weight or maintain weight depending on what you're consuming. So why not just make it a little bit more enjoyable for you and, do things that will help you adhere. Adhering to a program, to a diet plan is very difficult. I've got a client right now that I'm working with that, is having a hard time because I'm not sure if they are tired of tracking or keeping up with it or, whatever. And I talk a lot about going the distance. Like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Go the distance. And, I don't really know what's going on. So it's a lot of work for me to figure it out when we're just looking at calories. Right. And I could, normally there's a lot more to work with when you go the macro route. So, okay. So, the other thing is that, with using macronutrients, like, you don't have to track for the rest of your life. Once you get to your goal, you're going to kind of understand how you're eating, and it'll be easier for you to maintain your result and what you've done. And so, get the result and then just work to keep them. And it makes it so much easier. And it's a little bit more enjoyable during the process. So the thing to know is that there is a little bit of a learning curve. That's why I like to have these calls, and I like to do the teaching components for you so that you really do understand what we're doing and how you can continue doing this even after the 6 weeks is over. So, okay. So let's talk about them just a little bit. I tried to pull up the blueprint. Let's see if I can get it up real quick. Just bear with me just a second, because I want to pull up the, okay, good. Now, what I'm going to be showing you is not, I'm going to share screen. What I'm going to be showing you is not the blueprint that you have. This is actually the rough draft. Okay, here we go. Excuse my desktop. Okay, so this is the rough draft. So it's not going to look exactly like what yours does, but it has what we need in it, and it's the easiest one for me to access. So, okay, this is what I want right here. All right, so you have this food list, okay? And remember that this food list is not, let's check the time. Okay, 35 minutes in. Remember this food list is not, it's not extensive, okay? But if you notice, I broke it down into protein, carbs, and fat, right? So those are the macronutrients. I also call them food categories because sometimes that's easier for people to get. And I listed protein first. I always do that because a lot of times people don't get enough protein for men and for women, and it's something that they struggle with. Even for people who are on like a high protein diet, a lot of times they struggle to get enough protein in. So I'm going to break it down for you. What's the easiest way to remember where macronutrients come from? And then now that you know and understand fully how to look at a food label, you can also use that to your advantage, right? Okay, so we're going to talk about protein first. And the thing to know is that every cell in your body requires protein. It is very important. It is the building blocks of repairing yourself. So when we have stress on our body, when we work out and exercise, we get these like micro tears in our muscle, and then it repairs. And that's how we actually grow muscle and change muscle. And the thing that our body uses to help that process is protein. It is the building blocks of our body, okay? Not even just our muscle, but our organs and everything else. So we actually use protein quite a bit. Carbohydrate is also important for recovery. I'll get to that in a minute, but I did want to just make a note of that right here real quick. So if you will notice in the protein column, and these are all pretty lean sources of protein, and that's intentional because of the way this plan is set up for you to get some quick wins up front. And that's why I also make sure that you understand that this is not extensive. So protein, if you think about it, like it comes from animal, okay? There are other sources, yes, but just think in terms of if it comes from an animal, it is likely protein. All right, so there's on the list, we have chicken breast, turkey, ground turkey that also includes other ground meats like ground beef and ground chicken. There's some seafood, crab, shrimp, lobster. There's red meat, steak, and ground beef, and buffalo is also considered a red meat. And then there's other things like ham and eggs, and then some other fishes, and wild game meats included on there too. So all of those come from an animal, right? So a lot of people ask about dairy. Yes, dairy has protein in it. Dairy is a combination food, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But it has protein in it. If you use Greek yogurt and not Greek yogurt that's flavored, but Greek yogurt that is plain, it is predominantly protein. I think like the Fage has like 20-ish grams of protein in it, and the carbs are a little bit less, so it's predominantly protein. So Greek yogurt can be considered a protein food because it's predominantly protein. And that's how I use food labels. Whatever the food is predominantly, that's the food category that I put it in. That's the macronutrient category that I put it in. So Fage yogurt, I would put it as my protein source because it is predominantly protein with the 20-ish grams of protein that it has. I think it's like 19, 20, maybe 21, but I really think it's 20, maybe 18. Depends on if it's full fat or not. So okay, so there are different types of protein. These are all muscle meat proteins and seafood and fish. There are also protein powders. There's whey protein. Now there's like bone broth powder, and there's vegetarian powders or vegan powders, and all different kinds of stuff. The thing to know about protein powders is, yes, sometimes it helps you. It also digests quickly. So if you are having just a protein shake and it's literally like the protein powder and water, it's not going to last you very long because first of all, it's low in calories. Second of all, it's going to digest pretty quickly. And that's because it's already broken down. Your body doesn't have to go through breakdown processes with it. It's already broken down. So it just hits your system and it just runs through it. And like within an hour, you're hungry. Even if you pair it with something like fruit, because fruit is a carb, it's simple sugars, and it does also digest quickly. So if you have a protein shake that's made with water only, or even milk digests quickly, and fruit, like you feel like that should last you 3, 4, 5, 6 hours because you've eaten a meal, but it doesn't because it just digests quickly. So you can do things to make stuff like that last longer by adding in fat, stuff like that. We'll get into that in a minute. So different types of protein. Okay. So if you are working from a health perspective, okay, like trying to improve health, it's better to use pro-metabolic foods. So foods that will support and enhance your metabolism. Those foods are things like fish and seafood and bone broth. If you're into that, bone broth is pro-thyroid, pro-metabolic food, and eggs and dairy and What else is in there? There's one more thing in there that I'm missing. Organ meat, which I know is kind of weird and strange for people, but liver, if you could do chicken liver, or if you can do like a pate, a liver pate kind of deal, whatever you can tolerate. I know just because the nature of our culture right now, we don't eat those foods very much anymore, but they are full of vitamins and minerals for you if you can, and they are pro-thyroid and pro-metabolic. So collagen, gelatin is the other protein that I'm thinking about that's pro-metabolic. So muscle meats are not as metabolically supportive. So if you are working from a health perspective, it will benefit you to kind of lean toward fish and seafood and shellfish and eggs and dairy that you tolerate. So if you don't tolerate cow's milk, do goat's milk or whatever. If you don't tolerate it at all, then just don't use it. So, and then collagen gelatin Great Lakes makes a great one if you like that. I like it best because it's ground very fine. It mixes into anything very smoothly, and it doesn't get clumpy or anything like that. So the thing to know is that protein's important. We need it. We should have it. We should get it. How much? There are varying thoughts on this. Most people say 1 gram per pound. I weigh 185-ish, so that would technically be 185 grams for me. But there are also schools of thought that say 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. It really depends on your goals. I know that one of my friends who does research said that he showed that for women, he gets a better result if it's a little bit less. It's 0.8 grams per pound. So, play with it. I would go at least 0.8 grams per pound and see if that works for you. And then if it needs to be a little bit more or less, you could play with it. If that's too much work for you, then just do 1 gram per pound. And that's usually the standard that we hear. I know there's some other research that shows different things, but, start somewhere and do something. And then if it doesn't work for you, you can make some adjustments. I would not go under 0.8 grams per pound for sure, especially if you're lifting and doing muscle building types of workouts and stuff, just because you need that. Like, you don't want to muscle waste, especially if you're trying to lose weight. Like, you're trying to preserve that, and the protein is one of the ways that we do that. So, okay, that's protein. So let's move over to carbs, and there's always the great carb debate. I'm going to try to run through this quickly so that we can get off of here quickly. I like to keep them about 45 minutes because I know sometimes it gets in depth and it's overwhelming. So the great carb debate. Okay. Do you need carbs? Yes. Period. You need them. Your body works off of it. Carbs break down into sugar and into glucose. Your brain works off glucose. It's literally the only fuel source that it runs off of. Yes, it will run off ketones if you're keto, but it likes glucose best. That's its primary fuel source. It's quick. It gets into the body. And, the thing is, like, how you get tired and like you get into like a midday slump kind of deal and you get tired and you're like, oh, I need a soda or some caffeine or something. But then you actually don't have that. And then you have a meal and then you feel better and you're awake. Well, that's because you put some sugar in your body, right? So it gives you immediate energy. It's quick energy. You need it to, recover. You need it to run your body processes. You need it to expend energy. You need it to work out. So you do need carbs. Okay. Are there better or worse carbs? I think that mostly depends on if you have food allergies. So for me, anything that's gluten containing, it's not a good option for me. It hurts my stomach. It makes me feel bad. I get hungover. Don't like it. It doesn't make me feel good. So it's not a good option for me. Are there other options that are helpful that I can use? Yes, that are a little bit more higher in carbs. Yes, there's rice, there's gluten-free grains now, there's gluten-free pasta now. So there's a lot of options out there that I can use. And yes, I do use those. So, okay, talking about carbs. So on this list, we have mostly vegetables. Okay. The thing is that if you're eating vegetables, like above ground vegetables, like broccoli, asparagus, lettuce, carrots, and cauliflower, they're not going to give you a lot of calories per volume. Okay. So like half a cup of broccoli, I think it's 3 cups of broccoli that will give you 9 grams of carbohydrate. It might be 2 2 cups. But it's a lot. So it's a large volume of food. And if you need that much volume to feel full and satisfied, it's great. Do it, you know. But if you need, if maybe you don't have that much time to eat that much, or you don't like it, or your body can't handle it, then you're going to have to opt for something that's a little bit higher in carbs, which is going to be something that's a little bit more starchy, like potatoes. Okay. White potatoes, sweet potatoes, new potatoes, red skin potatoes. You can do those. You can do rice, you can do beans are carbohydrate. I don't have them on here, but beans go in that category as well. Also fruits are helpful. If you are working from a health perspective, the metabolic foods in the carb category are things like the squashes, winter squashes, yellow squash, zucchini. Winter squashes are like acorn squash, butternut squash, spaghetti squash. I think that's all of them. Pumpkin goes in there. I think it's technically a squash. Those kind of vegetables. So you've got potatoes, you've got squashes, you've got cucumbers are okay, and then you have fruits. Okay, and that's really just about it that's all that's coming to mind right now from a metabolic perspective. Okay, if you eat above ground vegetables and you have a hard time processing them, overcook them. I know they say don't overcook them because it messes up the nutrients, but if you're not digesting them, then you're not going to get the nutrients anyway. So help yourself out a little bit and overcook them so that you can process them and absorb them, and then you'll get what you get out of it. As your digestion heals and gets better, then you'll be able to eat them more raw than otherwise. So okay, so that is carbs. Yes, you need carbs. Don't be afraid of sugar. I mentioned once before somewhere recently that it's not the sugar that is killing you and making you fat. It's the combination of sugar and fat. The polyunsaturated fat or the vegetable corn oils is what makes people fat and overweight, and not the sugar itself. I actually feel better when I put some sugar in my diet, and have recently even started doing sugar in my coffee and tea, and it actually helps me feel better. And you know, just because I'm putting a little bit of sugar in my diet. So don't go overkill, but don't limit yourself either. When you limit carb in your system, in your diet, this is very important. When you limit carbs and go on like a very low carb diet, and you're only eating like those above ground vegetables that don't have a lot of carbs in them, your body down regulates, your gut will down regulate the amount of enzymes that you have to break down those types of foods. So what happens is when you put them back into your system, they make you feel bad. Your body has a hard time processing them. And you think it's actually the food itself, but it's not. It's that your body can't break it down, or it doesn't break it down well because you've chosen to go low carb, which is fine if you do it moderately. But if it's extreme, your body does down regulate the enzymes that you use to break those down. So then you add them back and you have a hard time with them. They hurt your stomach. They can make you gassy or bloated or whatever. And so it's not necessarily the food itself. It's that your body has a hard time breaking it down, because with everything that we do in our system, there is a reaction to that. Like our body will upregulate or downregulate something to adapt to what it is that you're doing, because we're highly adaptable. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about you need less carbs in your diet. If you're having a hard time breaking down carbohydrate foods, if they're making you feel bad, reach out to me and let me know, and we can kind of troubleshoot what's going on. Sometimes you can just add in some digestive enzymes for a while, and that will be helpful. But listen to your body on that. You know, if you're having a hard time with them, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not for you. It may mean that you need less. So if you haven't had carbs in a while and you want to have a potato, like start with a half a cup and see how you feel. If you feel bad, the next time you have it, do a quarter of a cup, just a little bit less. And it may even be like a tablespoon or two that you have, just so that you're putting it into your system and your body can re-regulate to getting that food and breaking it down and actually using the nutrients that are in it to help you rather than hurt you. Okay, so that's protein. So let's move into fat just a little bit, and then I'm gonna let you go. I feel like this is a lot that we've covered today, and then I will do a separate video about tracking your food, or maybe we'll just do it next week when the site isn't down for maintenance. So, okay, let's talk about fats. Fat makes you feel full. It gives you satiety, which basically just means that you're satisfied. And so that's what it does. It gives you calories and it makes you feel full. If you want to test this, then have something that's like a protein and a carb, a meal. So, okay, let's go back to the protein shake, even that digests fast. Okay. So you have protein powder and water with like a banana. Okay. It digests quickly. You're going to put it in your system. You're going to use it. And then in an hour, 2 hours, you're going to be hungry again. All right. So then do the same meal, and you can like eat that, note the time that you ate it, and then track like the time that you are hungry again. Excuse me. And then, the next time, let's say like maybe the next day you have the same meal, but then you add like a nut butter with it, or some kind of fat. So you can do like a cashew butter or peanut butter, whatever you like. Just add some fat to it, note the time that you had it, and then note at the point that you were hungry again. And it should last you longer. Even if it's 10 minutes longer, it's still longer, right? So when you add fat into your diet, your meals last longer. So they kind of carry you, and that's what we want. The other thing about fat is that it's really important for your brain and your nervous system. Okay. So our nerves are covered in this thing called myelin sheath. Sometimes my enunciation's off, but anyway, there's a sheath around your nerves, right? And it's made from fat. And that's what it is. It's a fat cushion that helps the electrical impulses that come from your brain into, I don't know what's happening. I'm getting a call. Sorry. Into your, it conducts the electrical impulses from your brain that gets sent through your nerves into your systems and into your muscles and into your body. So it's very important that we protect that. And fat is one of the ways that we do that. So it's very important for your nervous system. It's very important for your hormones, right? So if you're in menopause, or if you're older as a man and you're worried about your testosterone or whatever, it's very important for that. Okay. So you need fat in your diet. Now research shows that saturated fat is perfectly healthy and safe, and it's a better option over unsaturated fats because our body likes it better, our cells like it better. Unsaturated fats are kind of like watered down fat, and saturated fat is pure fat, and so your body will use it better, it likes it better, it will perform better on it. So saturated fat is the way to go. That's what I coach. I find that from a health perspective, it's better. So and on the list, okay, so we've got coconut milk, coconut oil, olives, olive oil, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, nuts, natural nut butters. There's also avocado, which is not on the list. It should be. I think it may be on the list in your blueprint. But avocado is a fat source because it's predominantly fat. So also corn oils, butter, which should also be on here. I think that's in your blueprint. So those things are fat. All right. So think about this like when you're struggling with what macronutrients are in a food, and you're looking at whole food sources, not packaged foods, but whole food sources. Proteins or meat, things that come from the sea. Okay. Anything that comes from a meat, like dairy comes from cow, eggs comes from chicken, same deal. Okay. Those are meat, animal, seafood type of things. Okay. So those are the foods that protein is going to come from predominantly. If you are like vegan or vegetarian, there are vegetable sources that you can use. They are not pure. I'm not certain if soy is in there or not, if it's a pure protein food, but there are options, and I'm sure that you know what those are. If not, then you should definitely look that up and research that. Fat comes from oils, butters, nuts, and seeds. Okay. Everything else goes in the carb category. That's the easiest way I know how to explain it to people. So you've got seafood and meats, and then that are protein, and then you've got oils and butter and nuts and seeds that are fat, and then everything else goes in the carb category. So let me take just a few minutes, and let's go back to the food label. And I'm not sure if you can see this very well. Let me blow it up. Okay. So, and I'm not sure what these food labels are from, but what I want to do is give you examples of when I look at a food label, how I factor in what macronutrient it goes in. Okay. So even though this is what I'd call a blended food, because it has some fat, some carb, and just a little bit of protein, but it's in there. So I'll consider it a blended food, right? Because it has 37 grams of carbohydrate. And even though I'm not thinking about how many calories are coming from it. I'm solely looking at the grams of the macronutrient. Okay. It's 37 grams of carbohydrate, 8 grams of fat, and then 3 grams of protein. So it's predominantly carb, right? So I would count this for my carb food. When you're building your meals, like, you always want to eat carbohydrate and protein at every meal and have a little bit of fat in there too. And so I would want to count this as my carb food. Okay. So then if I had like chicken, which is predominantly protein, then I would have this as my carb food, chicken as my protein. And there's a little bit of fat in here, and there's also going to be some in the chicken. And so my fat essentially would be taken care of. Okay. And so that's the way that I look at it. I think it makes it easy for people if you just focus on, the one, like the one thing of like what it is. Okay. So sometimes it gets a little bit tricky. I don't know if you can see that it has 6 grams of protein in it. Because this has 44, this is obviously candy. It's 44 grams of carb, and then it's 21 grams of fat. It's still carb heavy. So I would count this as my carb, and I would want to add some protein to it, but it has plenty of fat in it. So I don't have to worry about adding fat to it. Since this is a candy bar, I would just opt to pair it with a Greek yogurt, like a plain Greek yogurt, and you can even crumble it up and mix it into your yogurt, and that's a great snack. But that way you get carb, and then you have a second food option that is the yogurt that will give you the protein, and there's plenty of fat in there that you don't have to add anymore. It looks like most of these are carb foods, but that's the way you kind of look at it. And okay. That's the way you kind of look at it. All right. So this one has 19 grams of fat, 15 grams of carbohydrate, and 30 grams of protein. So I would use this for my protein source, right? So I have 30 grams of protein in this one, and there's still a pretty good amount of fat in here. So I would want to add some carbs. So let's say this is some kind of protein. I don't really know. Oh, it's a recipe. So we know from right here that it's a recipe. So whatever serving of this is protein heavy. So let's say it's like a casserole. So I might want to add some rice to it. That would give me a little bit more carbohydrate, or you could do vegetables or a potato or whatever, just something that would give you just solely carbs. And then you've got a pretty good amount of fat in here. If you had a potato and you wanted to add a little bit of butter, that would be okay. It would just give you a little bit more fat in that meal and also more calories, but that's okay. So use food labels to your advantage. Don't get overwhelmed by it. You're really just trying to figure out what the food is, right? So I think this is the same thing from earlier. You just want to figure out what the food is, okay, and how it fits into your diet. I think this is milk right here. It may not be. Anyway, something like this where it's 8 and 8 and 4. Okay, so this is like a true blended food. This might actually be milk. I think milk is 16 grams of carbs. But if you get one that's like this, you're like, well, where does it fit? Well, pick one. You know, if it's more of a carb type food, then you can put it in carbs. If it's more of a protein type food, then you can put it in protein. It's fine. Just make a choice on it, and don't wear yourself out trying to make a decision and figure out where it goes. Just put it somewhere. And then you can lean on the type of food that it is or whatever the food label's given you on it. So, okay, that's a lot. We got pretty deep today. So just to kind of review, macronutrients are the large nutrient foods, right? Protein, carb, and fat. You get calories from those foods, and those calories give you energy. Your body is using or storing that all throughout the day. And that's why it's important to track your food and or your macros so that you can pretty much guarantee your success. There's a lot of different things to manipulate and to work with within that so that you don't hit a plateau, and you can kind of keep driving in the direction that you want to go into. You also are more likely to get results and keep them. So just remember to use your food labels to track your food if you're not already doing that. And you know, just work on it. If you have questions, reach out to me and let me know. I'm just trying to check and make sure that I covered everything. that I wanted to do today. So I'll either do a tracking video. I'll either do it and send it out, or we'll do it next week. I want you to see that and how to manipulate your meals and make them work for you rather than against you. One of the other things that we're going to do is look at how to do the math on calculations and stuff. I can do that for you if you want. I think it's beneficial for you to understand how to do that yourself so that you can kind of manage things. It's always easier to have someone else do it for you, though. So if you need me for that, I'm here for you. Let me know if you have questions. I know this was a lot. Keep working on it. You're doing great, going in the right direction. And I hope this is beneficial for you and that you're learning about food and how it is beneficial for us to keep track of it and know what's going on to be able to get the results that you want. So have a good day, and I will talk to you next week.